So just a quick orientation at this stop. We're on page 23 in the call to artist document. If you're on page 23 and you face it with the page number downwards, we are looking right now at King Street. The location for potential artwork is right in front of us on this wall area here. The LRT's on this side, so this is the closest wall here. The LRT stop is running from that traffic signal in the foreground there, running along here, and it stops just shy of where we are right now. The hospital is to the right of us, and then across there is CKCO, CTV Kitchener. Any questions while we're here? Maybe Kate can answer that a bit better.
So this stop is a bit of an evolving stop, and there is a lot of I guess, complexity with the relationship with the hospital. And so when we asked the community about this stop, it seemed to be a very important spot, and there was a lot of great ideas about what the artwork could be and how meaningful it would be. And so we're really wanting to have artwork at this location, but the actual space is more constrained than at the other stops. With our original criteria, we may not have chosen this stop as an ideal location, but we see the opportunity in conjunction with this retaining wall as potentially a screen or something that helps to enliven the space and takes away from the massive amount of parking that is in this area. Yeah, so something that is mounted on top of the wall would be an ideal piece.
Low, like how high can it be?
Again, it's not anything that's required from a building code in terms of a barrier height, so it can be flexible in height, and you would just need to think of things like wind resistance in terms of the design. So anything that is a screen of sort or a long vertical piece, just make sure that it has at least 40% openings so that the wind impacts will not be negative on the work. There is also, so this stop is, I guess it was explained, but it goes all the way up to the entrance of the hospital and the lights. And so there's this section of the wall that's here, and then there's a landscape section that also goes along. And right now, Rapid Transit has been working with the hospital to figure out exactly how they're going to landscape that area and how it's going to be maintained. What we're hoping is that once we have proposals and can actually show something to Rapid Transit and the hospital and say, this is an opportunity, and get their feedback, then we'll know what will work and what won't. So for our community voice here, we have Gwen Wheeler from the Cherry Park neighborhood. Hi. Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome to my neighborhood. I thought I'd give you a little bit of a historic context. A little bit of a historic context to the area. So it began to be developed as part of the town of Berlin in about 1870. And one of the first developments in the area was actually the cemetery. So if you go directly down Pine Street, that's where the public cemetery is. And but later than that, in about 1895, that is when this hospital was established on this site. And that was from land donated by Joseph Seagram, famous for whiskey. Yeah. So that was about 1885. If you go further down the street in an easterly direction, you'll find the high school, and that was built in about 1875. It was expanded in 1904, and then in 1924, most of the original building was taken down, although the expansion area remained, and they built a modern school in 1924. And since that time, there have been over 11 additions and refurbishings of that school, so it continues to serve the population. Both the hospital and the school are examples of how this area ties together Kitchener and Waterloo. So the boundary for the municipality is Union Street, and this point about it being the boundary area came up in the community consultation, and many people recognized that as a uniqueness to this particular site. And then a little bit further down the street in an easterly direction is the first elementary school in the area. That's King Edward Public School, and it was built in about 1885, sorry. And Agnes Street is the street that I live on. That house was built in 1928, and we are the third owner, so that's fairly typical of the area. They're small, modest homes. They were built for the factory workers, but people buy them and they don't see them as starter homes. They live in them for their lives. They raise their children there. So about the late 1800s and the early 1900s, there was a lot of industrial growth in this area, in Kitchener and Waterloo overall. It became known as the rubber capital of the world, and there were many rubber factories built at that time. So Kaufman Footwear is an example of that. It's now being converted to a loft area. I think there was also Epton Industry. And in 1912, the city councilor gifted $25,000 to Dominion Tire Company, and they came in and built a large rubber manufacturing plant, a tire manufacturing plant on Strange Street. And so Strange Street is just south of us. It's a large plant. It still exists and it still operates. It makes rubber compounds, and it's owned by Airbus. And so the building of that plant in this area was fairly significant because the owners and the industrialists were interested in building housing for their workers and for themselves. So there were initiatives such as the Dominion housing system, which was responsible for building houses on the streets around the factory. So when you stand here, you don't get a very good picture of the residential community, and that's why I wanted to point this out to you. It seems very industrial and institutional along King Street, but the residential communities are just one block back in both directions, and they're quite comprehensive. So they built those houses around the plant, but one of the industrialists, his name was Ryder, he had a larger ambition for himself and the other industrialists and company owners. He had traveled around the world with his business, and he'd lived in Montreal, and he came back with the vision of building a luxurious residential community in Kitchener Waterloo, and he proceeded to do that. And so he's responsible for the Westmount residential area, which is one of the nicest residential communities in Kitchener Waterloo. Now, what distinguishes Westmount from the other area is that it is upwind from the factory, and the houses closer to the factory are downwind. So there's a little bit of a a cultural divide, and I live downwind. So that's a little bit of the history. I wanted to make sure you recognize that there is a lot of residential housing around here. On my street, there's quite a mix of age, of income and occupation of people who live there. We have young couples who move in, young families who move in, families like mine where we are empty nesters, retirees, and seniors. So it is a mixed community, mixed also in terms of occupation. So those houses at one time would have been built for the factory workers, but now we have plumbers and electricians, business owners, people who are working in the tech industry are interested in that location. The area is starting to be designated as Midtown. I think this is more of an initiative of the developers to give it some sort of branding, that it is actually recognized by the original people who live in the community. I don't oppose it. It's just it's not a term that people living in the neighborhood would use. Although, despite not recognizing ourselves as a particular area, there is a lot of community activity that happens. So in my area, there's one of the largest summer festivals, neighborhood festivals, happens in a park close to our house. 3,000 people would attend that in the summer. There are 2 winter ice rinks maintained by volunteers, and that's in addition to the municipal arena for hockey. The school hosts winter fests. There's a corn roast, and also in this area is one of the longest running studio tours. So it's a local studio tour that happens for the artists in the area. It's called the Mary Allen Studio Tour, just to give you a sense of the kinds of activities that happen here. I'm on, okay?
Yeah, this is great.
Okay. I'm on the Public Art Committee, and we have 2 public art initiatives underway. One of the purposes of those pieces of public art is actually to try and soften some of the city harshness that happens when you live in a community where you have industry and residential areas side by side. And so I heard a little bit about that, along this wall. You want to block the parking lot or soften the parking lot. And that's exactly what I'm hoping your public art will do, because we need a little bit of softening now and then. There's some harsh areas. I was asked to just tell you a little about the audience. So of course it's going to be, we have one of the largest employers in the neighborhood. This is Sun Life Insurance. There'll be the employees from that area will be the audience for the art. Of course, the high school, patients coming to the hospital, using the hospital, the staff and the doctors and the professionals at the hospital and in their offices around the hospital will all be part of the audience. And in addition to that, the residents, of course. It's a very walkable community. People walk dogs, people walk to Waterloo. People walk to Kitchener. So just to give you a sense, that helps. And then I was asked to maybe mention how the art could reflect the community. And there was a lot of discussion in the community consultation about that. I think you'll have the notes on that. I'd rather you refer to that. If I had any suggestions, I would like the art to be a recognizable point for the Midtown, the newly branded Midtown area, so something that's quite recognizable. My own personal preference is for something that's joyous or whimsical. I have the podium, I thought I'd share this. And my other word would be not pretentious, and that's because we're the people who live downwind from the factory, so we're the non-pretentious neighborhood. So hopefully that helps you, and great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Gwen. It's wonderful to have these voices from the community, and I hope that you're feeling like you're getting to know Waterloo Region a little bit just by hearing all of the different people speak to us today. And like Gwen said, the neighborhoods are just off of this corridor, and so when we get back on the bus, look out the window and see what we're driving through. Was there a question?
The sign coming back, the one that's designated Waterloo, that old vertical post. It used to be right over.
Yeah. Brendan, do you know if the Waterloo sign is coming back that designates that
weird retro sign?
The cheesy Waterloo sign?
Yeah.
She likes it.
I'm not sure for sure if it's going in that same location or not, but it's going somewhere.
Okay.
Send a note to your mayor. Perfect. Any other questions about this stop? I think we're thinking of it above the wall so it's more visible. Whereas some of the other retaining walls, when there is a grade change, you can see. The wall right now is right on the property boundary, and we can work through with the hospital and with rapid transit in terms of ownership. So I would propose for exactly where the wall is. Yeah.
On the wall or on top of the wall?
On top of the wall is what we're thinking. Just because the wall is if you were on the road, it's actually a higher elevation than this parking lot, so there's very little wall showing from the sidewalk. You mainly see it from this parking lot, which is mainly for hospital staff. It's not the general public as much using this space. Some people had wondered about hopping on and off the bus if you weren't going to stay for the whole tour, and this is a location where the main bus line that usually is on King Street, the number 7, that goes to Conestoga Mall, is running on Park Street. So if someone does need to get back earlier and can't stay for the last 2 stops, this would be a good location to do that. Otherwise, we can hop back on the bus and head to the Research and Technology Park.